recall our last discussion. So basically, we talked about the the basic understanding about the data model and how many different types of data model possible, like custom data model, standard data model, and enhancement of standard data model, where basically we create one custom data model with the airline data management process. And then while doing that, we talked about the different type of storage types with different examples. And then we talked about the relationship. However, in the relationship, we just talked about the referencing relationship. But today, in the example, we will see the leading, qualifying, and foreign key. Okay. Then we talked about the cardinality. So and the example which we created in the last week session for custom data model, there we talked about the different cardinalities. Uh, Particularly, we use 1:n cardinality, which normally used in a large manner. But the other cardinality also we talked about. Then we had a discussion about the active and staging area. So, and at the same time, we talked about the reuse mode and flex mode. So basically, in which case reuse mode possible and in which module the or which domain the flex mode can be possible. Then we talked about the standard data model, like the different entity types, the different attributes, the different relationships. And then we talked about the access class. So what are the different access class we have? What is the objective of the access class? What exactly the access class play a role in the framework, in MDG framework? So that we talked about. Then we talked about the flex mode and reuse mode. Okay, and today, basically last week's session, we talked about flex mode and reuse mode, mostly from the theoretical standpoint or the fundamental standpoint. But today we are going to talk about uh, with the demonstration that how the reuse mode and flex mode works. Okay. So while doing that, so today basically we will talk about the four different exercises, or we will see how much we can cover. But basically the four different activity we will talk about. One is add custom attribute in the data model. Second thing is add custom entity types in the data model. Third one is the genuine model. And fourth one is the customer vendor integration, which is CVI. So this is the four items which we will talk about. So first go to the custom attribute in the data model. Now the first question which comes in mind, that why I need the custom attribute in the data model, when in the data model I have already a standard attribute in place. So the answer is, what happens that every business is different, and every business requirement is different, and those different requirements, different objectives may not be satisfied with the standard fields. Okay, so that's what we will be required the custom attribute in the data model. Okay, so that's the whole purpose to have it. So now let me go to the system, and the transaction which I will be using, that is MDG IMG. Okay, and this is the transaction which is for accessing the MDG master data. Okay, MDG IMG. Now in this particular transaction, go to the general settings and data model and edit data model. Okay, Now, first, as the enhancement is something which is related to the standard data model, which will be extended further. So first, we will talk about, let's say, with the material masters. Then I will come to the business partner. Then I will talk about finance. Okay. So let's go with material master extension. So go to the entity type. And here, what is the main entity type? The main entity type for material is the material entity type. This is the one. And if you see inside this particular entity type, we have the several attributes. And one of the attribute is like material group, then we have industry sector, then we have material type, then we have the other basic details. What are the basic details? Like net weight, product hierarchy. So these are all base unit of measure. These are all the basic attributes in the material. If you want to create material, those attributes will be required. So now I'm going to create one custom attribute here. So click here. So I'm just creating one white test 01. Okay, I'm just creating one uh, some custom attribute with some random name. Whether this particular attribute having any relation with currency and unit of measure, not necessary. If in down the line, if necessary, we will see how we can, if any certain validations or any derivations needed, that we will see later. But at this moment, no. Search help, no. At this moment, I'm not maintaining search help, but in the down the line, we will see that respect to one custom field, how we can maintain the search help. So that is one of the very important topic. But at this moment, we are not doing this. We will go with a very straightforward example. Then no existence check. That means whether it will be out of the validations. No, it will be part of the validation. So no need to uh, put a tick mark over here. So the description. Let's say this is a test field for material. Okay. Then whether any respective structures or field that is necessary for this. At this moment, we will not put it, but down the line, in the example which we will talk about, there we will see how we can maintain that structure or field and what is the purpose of it. That we will see. In fact, today, one of the example we will talk about that. So this is the attribute details. So just save it. Okay. Data element, let's say character 5. Okay. Then it will ask me the the detail which I have created. This detail has to be stored in a particular transport. So like in previous session we were talking about, so there are two type of transport. One is the workbench request, another one is the customizing request. Workbench request means like uh, the request which is the framework which is already exists, you are just adding something in the existing framework. That is something workbench. Customizing means you are completely doing a new activity. That is something which is customizing. So here it is a workbench because already This data model is exist. I'm just adding the relevant attribute in the data model. So I will see whether my respective, no, I cannot see any respective TR. So I will create, so I will give some name like mm, data model. Okay. So now what happens that this data, whatever the data I have created, this will be stored in the respective TR. And this TR, because everything first we will do in development, in the real-time project. Then once in the development everything completed and tested, then the same details we will move on to the quality system. In quality system, basically customer will test and then we will send it to the production system. This is how the whole transition happens. Right? So we will store the data first in the respective TR. So that TR will keep moving to the quality and production. So this is now I have added. Once I add, let me come back completely and again get into the data model. And when I get into this data model, what I can see with respect to the material data model that earlier the active version was same. So what was the meaning for the active version? In the last session we were talking about same means it has been activated. So now it is different. Different means that once upon a time it has been activated, then something has been changed and that has been set but not yet activated. So that is the case like the custom attribute which we have added that has been just added and saved it but not activated. So now we are going to activate it. So let's go and activate this data. So in the previous session, when we see that we had an airline data model, it took lesser time in order to activate the data model. But when it is or BP or finance data model, it will take some time because the reason is the number of attribute, the number of entity types, the number of relationships you have, it will take more time to activate. Okay. So now it says that the changes must be adjusted because the data model has been modified. Okay. So that means the data model is now activated. I can see the active version is same, but at the same time it is saying that it has to be adjusted. Adjusted with whom? Adjusted with the backend staging table. This is the front end and the backend is the staging table. So this staging table level, we need to do the synchronization. So let me go to the transaction AC38. This is always remember and underline this point. This is always your uh, consequence activity, or rather the moment you activate your data model, the following activity is to synchronize the details with the staging table. And for that, you need to come to the transaction AC38 and then the program name which you need to type, that is USMD underscore adjust underscore staging, which is for update the master data changes after the activation of data model. Okay. And again, I repeat why it is happening, because you have added something or you have removed something or you have made certain changes in the data model. So that change needs to be synchronized with the staging table. That is the whole objective to doing this adjustment. So now go to this execution, and here you need to give the model name. So for me, just now I have worked with data model, so execute. So it will take again a few seconds or a couple of minutes in order to synchronize the data with the staging table. Now the question is, if this particular activity I will not do, then what is going to happen? See, normally the synchronization activity, the moment you activate the data model, that time it happens at the backend. But still, in the process, we request the developer to perform this activity additionally, because sometimes it has been experienced that this synchronization could not done properly, even though the activation of the data model completed. Okay, and if we will not do this activity, if the data model and the staging table is not synchronized with each other, then what is going to happen, that when you will start creating the data or when you will start updating the data in the real time process, then it will give a dump, and it will say that the field or the particular attribute is unable to recognize by the system, because let's say the field which you have added in the data model, that is still not available in the backend staging table. That's the whole idea, to have this adjustment. Okay, so we have activated the data model and we have adjusted. Then what next? Now, one thing you have to remember, that whenever your customer will say that, look, I need a custom attribute or custom, entity type that needs to be added in my process. The first thing which you need to ask, that whether it will be reuse mode or flex mode. But in return, your customer will say, what you are talking about? I don't understand what is reuse mode or flex mode. Then you have to explain, like, look, the data, the field which we have added, or the custom field which you want to add in the data model. So basically, this conversation has to be done in the blueprint phase. So the data, the not data, the attribute which you want to add, the custom attribute you want to add in the data model, whether this particular attribute you want in the respective database table, or you don't need that. Then again, they will ask, I don't understand what you are trying to say. Then you have to explain in little pictorial manner, if possible. Like for an example, here is the example. Let's say this is your MDG process till activation. Okay, this is your MDG process. Let's say where you have requester, verifier, approver, whatever it is. But ultimately in MDG, you add one field called ytest01. Now, whether this ytest01, this field you need in the respective database table or not, then your customer will say, of course, if the data, if the attribute I'm adding in the process, then it will be part of the database table. Then your answer will be no, not necessary. It is all the time, it will be part of the database. Sometimes it is required, sometimes it may not. Why? Then why it is not required? Then you can give another example. Like for an example, the same example which I demonstrate last week, talked about, like material number, material type, material group, industry sector, unit of measure. These are all standard fields. And then you have a custom field like routing type, business unit, where routing type value, if the routing type value is, let's say, Y1, then the business unit value will be B1. If the routing type value is Y2, then the business unit value is B2. That means what I'm trying to say here, the business unit is looking at routing type. Based on the routing type value, the business unit value is depending. Okay, but business having requirement that they will only need the business unit value to see. They don't need this routing type in the database table. It is required in the MDG process just to populate this business unit value, because business unit value depends on routing type. But ultimately, routing type is not necessary in the database table. Rather, business unit along with the standard fields are necessary. Okay, so there might be such kind of requirement. Okay, so that you need to make it clear to your customer. Then they will understand. Okay, then they will say, okay, this particular field I need it, or this particular field I don't need in the database. Then they will specify to you. Okay, so this is how you need to identify, because if directly you will say that this is reuse mode, flex mode, they will not understand. Okay, so this is how you have to be little elaborate to them. Now the question is, what is reuse mode? What is flex mode? The simple answer is reuse mode is those configurations when your data you are adding in the MDG level, as well as your data is going to the respective database table as well. Then it is a reuse mode. But flex mode means you are just adding in the data model, but it is not going to the respective uh, database table. Okay, so because of that reason, we have two different type of modes: reuse mode and flex mode. I repeat, reuse mode means you add the particular attribute in the MDG level as well as in the respective database table. Flex mode means you add the attribute in the MDG data model level. Also, you add in the respective database table. Sorry, you are not going to add in the respective database table. So it's very clear. Database table, yes. Database table, no. Okay. So reuse mode means my data is going to the database table. Flex mode means my data is not going to the database table. Okay. Now the question is, what kind of configuration I need to maintain for reuse mode. So here is the step. So we will follow these steps. First is step one, add the custom field in the data model and adjust staging area, which already we have done. So we have created one custom field, which is ytest01. So here TL ytest01. So this is the one which we have created. Okay. So first step is add the custom field in the data model, activate the data model, and then adjust the staging area. That also we have done just now, that we went to AC38 and we execute this program, which is USMD adjust staging, in order to synchronize the data with the staging table. Okay. Now once this is done, then move on. Then add the custom field in the Mara table, because I'm standing with the data model. So I need to go with the Mara table. Same way, I will come to the business partner, then it will be added in the respective customer or vendor table. But let's focus on the material first. Okay? Then I will come to the business partner, customer, vendor, etc. Then next is, yes, go to AC11 Mara table, then here go to the append structure. append structure means if I want to add something in the standard table, I need to append it. So let's say this one, add field. Okay. So here add custom field y test 01. So the attribute name, type, what was the component type, which I maintain the character 5 as a data element. Obviously, it depends on requirement. Okay, I'm just using character 5. You can take a different example, obviously. So I'm saving it in a local object, but you have to save it in the appropriate package, in your project package, which will be provided by the basis team. So now I'm activating it. Okay. So this append structure contains this particular attribute, which will be appended with the existing Mara table. Okay. So while it is activating, let's see the next step. So this is the step 2, add the custom field with the Mara table. Then step 3 is include custom field in the table T130F. Now what is this T130F? Basically, this is the table. Inside this table, we have a certain view clusters. So if I talk about why this table update is necessary, what happens that ultimately the data which you are adding, that is going to the respective database table, and when you will create the master data, or when you will change the master data, that custom field will be part of the process. And then you enter some value of the custom field, and that gets activated and go to the respective database table. What happens if you don't append this particular table, or rather this table having a specific view cluster? If you don't append that particular view cluster, what is going to happen? Though your data is present in the framework, but you cannot see that data in the respective table, in the respective Mara table or customer table or vendor table, whatever the table, you cannot see that data. So that's why it is important to append this particular table just for the visibility of the data purpose on this respective database table after the processing. Okay, that's the main purpose to have it. Okay, so no, I don't need to see the activation log. It is activated successfully. Now I can see this field. One. Okay, now here you can see. Okay, so this is the field which we appended, and this is the append structure. Okay, so it is now appended with the Mara table, the material general data table. Okay, now next, let's move to the next, that is step number 3. Again, the same transaction, SE11. SE11 is a data dictionary. So in this data dictionary, we can have the database table access, the data element access, domain access, etc. So if you have one basic understanding, those who are not familiar much with SAP, so that's what my recommendation was for them in the first session itself, that to have a basic ABAP session, at least what is data dictionary, how the table works, how the structure works, in table what kind of detailing we have. So those basic details will really help such kind of discussion. Yeah. Now the database table is T130F display. Now here, what you need to do, you need to go to utilities, table contained, create entries, and this view object. V underscore, it's a view basically of this table. V underscore 130F. Okay. Now here you need to make the entry. Now here what you need to make the field name. Field name is ytest01, which we have added. But we should not write this way. There is a specific way of writing the field name here. What is the way? That here first we need to write that which table it is going, because what is the purpose you have to understand. Again and again I am repeating why we are doing this activity T130F, because if you don't do this activity, even though while processing your data, that particular custom field value you cannot see in that particular table. Okay, so that's what it is, for the visibility purpose. So that's what you need to first give the table name, one dash, and then the field name, no space in between. I repeat, table name dash field name, no space in between. Okay, and then save it. Of course, you need to place. So this is customizing, because we are creating a completely new request here. So let me create one customizing TR. I'm giving this name. It is not necessary that you also need to give. It is, of course, you need to provide based on your naming convention. Every project having some naming convention that you need to follow. Okay. So now come back. Now here you can see the detail about this field. Okay. Now the question is, this is the field name. Now selection group. Selection group is very important. What is selection group? Selection group means that this field, however I have added, but every single field which you are adding, you need to give the proper group name. That like under that particular group, that field will be reside. Okay. So you can choose what are the groups are not at this moment using. So you can see some 186 one. Okay, I'm just giving one random name, group name. Okay, you can give some other figure. That is fine. Let's see whether yes, I can see under this particular group already one field is present. Okay, no problem. I will continue this group with this particular field. Okay, that is fine. Now, what is next? Next is, while adding this, you have option whether you need to in the field selection, you have a various kind of a field selection option. So these are all different uh, reference field, or rather we can say that different type of material type. So based on this different material type, whether you want that field has to be hide, or it has to be required entry, or it has to be optional entry, something like that, so that you can make it. Okay, so these are all different type of basically material types. Okay, like FERT, FERT, this is one material type. HALB, this is another material type. So for this material type, whether you want to hide this particular field or display this or required entry or optional, I'm keeping it optional. Okay, this is through the configuration. Also, Same sort of things, like based on material type or material group, you can uh, make certain attribute or certain field invisible or read only or required entry or mandatory entry. So programmatically, you also can maintain this, and that is something which is recommended by SAP highly, rather than going through the normal configurations. Okay, because when you go with the custom logic, you can make it in a appropriate manner based on what customer is looking for. Like, definitely there will be not one condition, there will be multiple conditions which will be involved. So if you go with the above logic, that will be easier one to manage this. Or if you have a very straightforward approach, like, okay, let's say for this particular material type, I want to make it as a required entry. So then you just need to click on this radio button with respect to this particular material type. But anyway, I'm keeping it as an optional entry. Okay, and then just save it. Okay, so selection group you can take according to your, you can see there are different groups like 135, 153, 124. These are all used groups. If you want used group, then you can use it, or you can take a new group name. Okay, so this is, save it and activate it. Okay, so this part is done. Then next is generate the data model specific structures. Then again go back to the MDG IMG screen, general settings, data model, generate data model specific structures. Now here, what happens that in this particular generate data model specific structure, let's say at this moment we are talking with material. So you can see, respect to material, there is a package name which is a big package name. Anyway, so this is a standard package. So if I go to the structure, I can see respect to the different entity type, we have a different activity assigned for data model. Okay, and respect to that, we have a different structures. So now the particular custom field ytest01, this field under which entity type we have added under the data model, that is nothing but under material entity type. Okay, material entity type. So that means my focus will be the material entity type. So now I can see what are those details we have, what are those structures we have. First is the PDF based form, then is the mapping of reuse active area, then search application, then field control for attributes, then field property for attributes, and then key mapping for the entity type. These are all different attributes. Now let me explain what the other, what is this all about, each and every item. So basically, if I start with this PDF based form, so nowadays this PDF based form is obsolete, because earlier in MDG the PDF based form like Smart Forms and Adobe Forms it was using, but it has been obsolete the moment in MDG the floor plan manager has been introduced. So the floor plan manager is an advanced version of WebInfo component, which helps in the user interface formation. Okay. So when we will go to the UI chapter, we will talk about the floor plan manager. So what happens that if I use the Adobe Forms or Smart Forms, then this particular structure will be needed for this. But at this moment, as I said, that this is optional or rather obsolete. So it's not really necessary. Now coming to the next one, which is mapping of reuse active area. So what happens if I'm using the reuse mode, then this particular structure will be necessary. Why? What is the use of this structure? This structure we call it as a PP structure, or rather the full form is the persistent phase structure. So how this persistent phase structure help? What happens if I give the same example? Let's say requester submits something, it goes to the staging table or staging area. Then verifier, then approver, everybody approve. Then it goes to the active area, to the access class. That we know so far this story. Now let me add one more story along with this. And the story is when it is traveling from staging to the active area, from staging to the active area, after the activation or during the activation, it always go through the PP structure, or rather PP structure helps to move the data from staging to the active area. And what is this PP structure? Basically, the persistent phase. So let me give you another detailing on this. Actually, if you see the core technicality, the data does not flow directly from staging to the active. Rather, first the data move from staging to the PP structure, then from PP structure it will go to the active area. So this is the correct technicality behind it. Okay, so this is how it works. So basically, PP structure is the middleware structure which helps in order to move the data from staging to the active, particularly for the reuse mode, not for the flex mode, for reuse mode when your data is moving to the respective database table, right? So this is the PP. So that's what. So if the field I have added y test 01, that particular field has to be part of this PP structure, because ultimately the destination for this particular field value will be the respective database table. So that's what it will be required for me. Now coming to the search application. Search application means in MDG framework we have something called search and duplicate check. Okay, so this custom field which I'm adding today, down the line definitely I'm going to use that field in the search application. So that is the reason we need to also extend this particular structure, which is for search and duplicate check. The next is the field control for attribute. So the field which I'm adding today, definitely down the line it will be part of the validations and derivation, different type of validations and derivations. So that's what this structure is important. Okay. If it is not part of this structure, then I cannot validate that particular field as I want in my process. The next is the field property activities for attribute. So the same field which I added in the data model that I want to be part of UI down the line in the user interface. So if it is not part of this structure, then it will be not able to part of UI. Then next is the key field. So similarly, if it is not part of this particular key field structure, then I cannot able to do the key mapping and value mapping. So everything is linked with this particular structure. There is a reason behind it. It is not something which we are just simply doing. No, there is a reason behind it. Okay. So then what I need to do? Select this and click on this generate selected structure. So what is going to happen? This particular custom field then will be part of this structure. Okay, so it is now generating. That means it is now appending this field with this particular structure. Okay, so let it first, and then we will see each and every structure, whether that particular field is available or not. Clear? So this is the generate data model specific structure. Now probably you can ask one question, that look, I'm not dealing with UI field property at this moment. Then why I need to do the field UI field property? No, at this moment you are not doing. But ultimately in the framework you are ultimately going to do that. So may not be necessary today, but tomorrow it will be necessary. So that's what it is necessary to complete this activity. So in future, mm, uh, you need not to remember this, that okay, I need to go back and need to do this activity for this. So that's the reason. Okay. So now let me see this structure. So if I go and see this structure, so now display, and here see. So this component is now part of this structure, which is for PP mapping. Similarly, let's check for others. Let's say there UI. So for UI, if I go and check, okay, structure and display. It is 01. Yeah. Okay. So that means this field is now part of this structure. So far, whatever I described, like step one, step two, and step three, any question regarding these particular steps? Hello?
I have one basic question here. I have one basic
Yes,
question here.
yes, tell me.
Um, I mean, I'm just seeing from the overall point of view. Uh, okay, data model. I mean, what we are to be familiar with is basically MM, BP, OG, and OF, at least at the beginning stage. Then, point when you say attribute, each entity type has various fields, right? Can I kind of assume that, or is my thinking wrong? Hello?
Uh, I'm not really understand your question, but if I frame your question, you mean that in the data model, like every entity type will have the attribute. Uh,
Okay.
is
Yeah.
that your question?
Yeah. Every entity type will have attributes. Attributes are basically, when you say attribute, each attribute pertains to a certain field from MM01 or whatever, right?
Correct. So basically,
Okay.
attribute is nothing but a field.
Okay. Say
Attribute is
for
nothing but a field.
Okay. Okay. So basically, when you're talking about, say, MM01, let's get to the basic here. MM01, say for a particular material, you have so many important fields which we are discussing right now, and each field we are defining like a different attribute, right? Okay, no problem. I think once I go through this again, I'll yeah.
Yeah, like your understanding is now right. So basically, attribute is nothing but a field which
Okay.
is defined here, uh, like a part of entity types, and
Hmm.
then that field we are going to use in UI and so on. Okay.
Okay. No,
So
because
any other question?
Aditya,
Anybody
whatever you
has?
are telling, I'm trying to relate directly. Far as I'm concerned, I can understand MM.
Hmm, correct. Okay. So any other question? Anybody has?
I'm okay from my side.
Okay. So now let me move on to the next step, which is step number 4, the structure extensions. So what is that structure extensions? So basically, uh, so far we have seen that particularly in generate data model specific structure, we have extended various structures, and of course that was needed because of some purpose. Okay, and mm, but apart from that, there are still some more structure which needs to be extended. And what are those? First is this MDG mat S, the structure name. So if I say, what is this structure all about? So it's a MDG, MDG mat S and Mara, the table name. So MDG mat is the table name. So table name means the ultimate table where the data is moving. So that is nothing but here the Mara table. Okay. So ultimate the structure name is MDG mat S Mara. Now, first of all, we need to understand that what is the purpose of this structure and what is this structure all about. So basically the purpose of this structure is the moment you add the data in the respective Mara table. So this is the backend structure of the Mara table. And particularly if you see, if you display this structure and if you search that particular field, this one, y test 01, okay. So you can see this particular component is present, but this structure we didn't come before. This is the first time we are coming to this structure. Then how come this particular data has been added here? The reason is basically this particular structure is the backend structure of the Mara table. So the moment we add our custom field in the Mara table and we activate it, that particular Mara table, automatically this structure has been appended with this custom field. That's the reason you can see this particular component here. So we need not to do anything additionally. So you can see this is the material master basic data structure. So this is the backend structure. Now the next question which comes, that this structure for material. So similarly down the line when we will go for business partner, customer, vendor, so definitely we will have a such kind of structure for them. Yes, definitely we will have a such kind of structure for them when we will have this, the business partner, the customers, all those things. Okay. So then when we will talk about those activity, we will come across those structures. So I'm at this moment only focusing the material one. So that's what I'm just talking about the material structures. Okay. Then move on to the next structure, that is MDG DS Mat S table name UI. What is this particular structure? So here UI. Now if you see this particular structure, this is the material master basic data for UI field properties. That means whatever the component or the attribute or the field, whatever you call it, that particular attribute when you are adding in the data model, definitely at some point it will go to the UI. Doesn't matter whether it will go to the respective database, definitely it is going to the UI, because earlier we already seen or we already talked about that in MDG, everything and anything we will do through the NWBC process. And NWBC is nothing but a UI. So everything and anything what we are going to do, so everything and anything what we are going to do in the process, that is nothing but through the UI. Okay, so that means that particular field also to be part of this structure. So what happens if that particular field is not part of this structure? If I will not add my custom field in this structure, then on UI, I will not able to have the visibility of the field. Okay, so that's what I need that particular field to be part of this structure. And that is true, the component type has to be same. You can see that every field having the component type same. Okay, it's not like, obviously these are all different field, and if you see they are having the different data element, but here in this particular structure they are having the same component type. Okay. So again I need to append this structure. So let me create. So one. Okay. So add field in UI properties. So type, component type is this one. So save it. I'm at this. I'm in this because this is a kind of a demonstration. So I'm saving it in local object, but you have to save all your data in the appropriate package which you use in your project. Okay, and that package details will be provided by your basis team. So save it and now activate it. Okay. So now if I see this particular structure, just one, and now I can see this particular component is available in this structure. So again, I repeat, why this structure is necessary. This structure, if I will not add my custom field, then this particular custom field won't be available on UI. So that's what I need to append this. Now let's go to the next one. That is this MDG BS mat S table name underscore X. What is that? This is for SMT mapping. So SMT mapping is what? SMT mapping is basically we are going to do exactly the discussion regarding SMT mapping in the next step itself. So if I say in a very simple manner, SMT mapping is a such kind of mapping where we map the source and target system, or rather we say the source and target table we map. Okay. So, but again, if I will not add my custom field in this particular structure in SMT mapping, I will not able to get that particular field. That's the reason why I need to append it. So again, go back and put X. Again, you can see the component type I have to maintain the same, which is X field. So append structure, create one fresh item, and here add field for SMT mapping. Now y test 01 type component is this one. Save it and activate. Okay, it is a pretty quick one to activate. Okay, you can see this structure is now appended with this particular component. Now, what is next? The next is uh, SMT mapping. So now SMT mapping. So let's go to MDG IMG. In MDG IMG, go to the general settings, then go to data model, then go to create and edit mapping. Okay, and create and edit mapping. So the moment you click on create and edit mapping, one one navigation page will open, and here in this navigation page you can see the list of details. But what you need to do, basically we have this two type of mapping, which is MDG BS map to PP and MDG BS map to STA. And what is that? This is nothing but, as I was telling, that the actual technicality is the data does not move directly from staging area to the active area. Rather, it goes via PP structure. So basically, the data goes from staging to PP and then PP to the active area. So in the mapping, exactly we are doing the same sort of activity. So basically, the first item, which is MDG BS map to PP, that is having the staging area to PP. And the second one, MDG BS map to STA, which is from PP to the active area. Okay, so this two stage of mapping we have. Okay, so where first case the source is staging area, destination is PP. Second case, PP is the source and active area is the target. Okay, so first case, staging area is the source, PP is target. Second case, PP is source, active area is target. So this mapping we have to do. So first, MDG BS map to PP. So first go to SMT mapping and open. So MDG BS MDG BS map to PP. Now you will have a question in the meantime. So that means for customer, vendor, business partner, we will have a same sort of mapping. Yes, of course. When we will talk about that, we will definitely touch upon that point as well. Okay, so you can see the different mapping name. Only the difference is the mapping name. Only the difference is the table name. Only the difference is the structure name. But rest of the processes are same. Okay. So here, this is staging to the PP. Okay. So now in this, we have to go to the mapping step. That is, first of all, under which entity type we have added, under the material entity type we have added. So we have to see the mapping step which is related to the material entity type. So yes, find out material. MDG BS mat material. Okay. Then go to the details. Then go to transformations. Then field mapping. And here you can see, so the target structure, source structure. Okay. Now click on edit. So add. So here I can get the details from F4. Here it is. Now I can see my field here. Now I'm just going back a little bit. So this SMT mapping structure, because I have added this particular field in this structure, that's what I'm getting this field here. If I did not add that particular field in this structure, then in this list, this data will not be available. Okay, so I'm giving you the right uh, consequences, that if you will not do this, then what is going to happen with you. Okay, so here the field name, so character 5. Okay, then save it. Okay, so this is one step. Second one is MDG BS map to STA. Again, go back to SMT mapping and then open, and here MDG BS to STA. Okay. Now here, if I see the mapping step which I need to see here, that is the ultimately where my data is going, that is Mara table. So the mapping state which is having the Mara table, that I need to find. One moment, not this one. It will be second item. So which is MDG BS mat Mara, because ultimately my data is going to the Mara table. Okay, so Mara is my destination. So detail, transformation, field mapping, and now click on edit. So here add Again, you can see the field, whether it is a part of this list. Yes, it is there. Then structure details, I will just maintain the same structure. Again, field copy. Okay, this is the field and save it. So these two type of mapping which is done. Okay, and always, in fact, for customer, for vendor, always you have this same sort of a mapping. Only the name will be different. Of course, it is material, so you can see MAC. If it is business partner, you can see BP. If it is a customer, then you can see CUS. If it is a vendor, you can see VN, something like that. Okay, and then activate the data model. Then again go to the data model. Already you can say that my data model is activated. No, because you have, in the meantime, you have already added your field into many different structures, and the mapping also you maintain. So because of that reason, it is always a good practice or best practice to activate the data model. And as usual, that when you activate the data model, you need to adjust the staging table as well. Okay. So this is the complete configuration for reuse mode. These steps from step 1 to step 6. This is the complete step. Okay. Reuse mode. Now coming to the flex mode. So that means reuse mode means ultimately my data is going to the database table. Flex mode means my data is in the MDG process, but it is not going to the database table. So then what are the steps I need to carry? Then I need to carry in the step 1, add the custom field in the data model and adjust the staging table, because ultimately I have to add the data in the data model, a field in the data model, and then adjust the staging table. Second is the generate structure. That means adding the field in the respective Mara table and adding the field for T130F. These are all not required at all. Directly, we go to the generate data model specific structure, the backend structures for data validation, for search and duplicate check, for UI field properties, etc. Then structure extension only for UI. Okay, only for UI you need it. You don't need for SMT mapping, you don't need for other things. Because SMT mapping is not coming into this case because you are not, uh, because it is not a reuse mode. SMT mapping will come when it is a reuse mode, when your data is flowing from staging to the active area, and then just activate the data. Only these 4 steps you need to follow for flex activity. Okay. So here my data model is now activate. Now this consequence step is USMD adjust staging. Always I have to do this. Always. This is like a one following activity. The moment we activate the data model, we always need to adjust the staging table in order to synchronize the data with the staging table. Okay. So any questions so far? Whatever we have done with the reuse mode. Any
Yeah,
question?
Alta, this is Srini here.
Yes.
Like when you have multiple fields, can I have different fields in different structures and use them into one table? That that is possible, right?
Okay. Before I answer your question, when you just need to clarify one point from you, when you say that different structure I want to maintain my different, let's say, uh, if I frame your question first thing, that you have a multiple custom fields, and those multiple custom fields, you want to maintain different structures. So, and then ultimately you put it into the specific database table, whether
Yes.
it is possible or not. So my question to you is, before I answer, that what do you mean the different structures? What kind of different structure you are basically referring?
Like we have so many structures, right? When you are trying to map in this step 3, 4, where when you are trying to map
Correct.
into some,
Basically you are saying that in generate data model specific structure, we have seen multiple structures. So
yeah.
you are basically pointing to those structures, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now let me answer the question. So again, let me go to this structure.
Mhm.
Okay. So now this is to answer your question. I would like to answer in two parts. Part one:
Mhm.
if let's say you have a five or six attribute, custom attribute, and
Okay.
case one, it can be possible that they are all part of the same entity type, which is, let's
Mhm.
say, material entity type. For an
Mhm.
example, I'm just giving an example. Okay.
Mhm.
Now, in this case, whatever the structures you have,
Mhm.
you need to append all your custom field with all the structures, because every field which you are adding, if they are part of flex or reuse, doesn't matter, they have to be part of this structure, because this thing, because let's say for an example, yes, the reuse case, the reuse active area, yes, this is specifically for reuse, that is true. But if I
Mhm.
talk about the search activity, what does it matter whether it is a reuse mode or flex mode? Ultimately you need to search within the MDG business process. So that's what search is applicable for all. Similarly,
Mhm.
for validations and derivations, what does it matter? Whether your field is going to Mara table or not, ultimately the validation is happening within the MDG process. Similarly, on UI, all fields, irrespective of flex mode field or reuse mode field, you want them on UI. So that is something which is very natural, that you need every field to be part of it, this structure. So this different structure, all your custom field, you need to bring them in under this particular structure. Okay, so that is case one. Now coming to the case two.
Mhm.
Case two is, let's say you have five different custom fields, where three custom fields you are having under the material entity type, and
Mhm.
two other custom field which is under the other entity type. Let's say for an example, entity type, I'm just giving some example, that is valuation. Let's say
Mhm.
this is for characteristics basically. So this is another entity type, and you have, let's say, two the rest of the two custom field within this. Then again you need to come to the valuation entity type, select them and generate structure. Okay,
Oh.
so what is going to happen? That particular two fields will be categorically part of this particular structure, which is valuation structures. Okay, so whatever it is, all depends on under which entity type you are adding your custom field. Under which entity type you are adding your custom field. So that entity type you have to carry, select
Mhm.
it, and generate the structure.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Also, I did notice that that you have a button for transformation, right? When you you are doing mapping. So can you do transformations like the way you do it in ETL tools?
In the mapping transformation, so first of all, I did not understand your question. Let me go to the mapping, then probably you can explain. Okay, let's say this one. Let me select it. Go to the details. Transformation. Yeah, tell me.
So the way I mean, in ETL, when you say transformation, right? So you have, you can do some kind of massage into the data and put the rules, conditions. Can you do all this in this transformation, or what is this specifically about?
Basically, yes, this is a good question. So this under the transformation, whatever the field you see, majority field are custom, sorry, standard field. Standard field we need not to do anything because by default it will be there. Only the custom field which we have, that we need to additionally add them. Okay, so that is the only thing which we need to do. So otherwise, here basically under the transformation, what you are doing, you are basically uh, joining the source and the target field. That is what you are exactly doing. So you're simply providing the field details, which is your source field and the target field accordingly, and map them. Okay.
Okay.
So it is a field auto mapping which is happening. So if I come here,
okay.
Now if I quickly show you, so here is the one, and here. Okay, so this is already mapped. You can see it is the checkbox is already ticked. That means this is mapped with the source and target structure. Okay.
So basically, I mean, can you write some conditions here in this? So when you are moving data, when you are mapping?
Sorry, come again this question. I missed your question.
Formulas or something to calculate the target field?
I did not understand your question.
No, my point is, can you write some kind of calculations? Like, let us say, I'm getting from source of 100. When I want to move it to target, I want to make it like 10,000. Can you write those here, or you don't do that?
No. That you are talking about the data validations, calculations. That is something which we deal in a different part of MDG framework. Here in the data model, we just define the attribute. We don't do any calculations, validations, or derivations here. No, we are not doing here. Rather, we have a different space where we can do those validations, derivations, calculation, all sort of activities.
Okay. Got it. And
So that is
the activities what we are doing here, is it like technical activities or functional activities?
Rather I say, rather if I answer your question, I will say the person who ever about MDG process, that person to perform. I don't want to go with functional and technical here. Rather, I will say the person who is having the MDG understanding, he will or she will do this activity.
Okay. Got it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Basically, it is not a ABAP coding. It is just a basic configuration, but a very important configuration because based on this configuration, your rest of the framework is standing.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Got it. Yeah. Thank
Okay,
you.
just for your information, the
Hmm.
validations and derivation have a different chapter, and
Okay.
will be taken care down the line. Okay,
Okay. Sure. Yeah.
so that is a separate topic altogether. So we are at this moment in the data model chapter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mhm.
Yeah, Aditya, I have one question.
Yes, please tell me.
Yeah, Aditya, in the if I want to create a material, in the create material, for that I need to create a change request. Am I right?
Absolutely right.
For in that
Yes.
change request screen, I want to add a upstanding button or upstanding field. For that, I need to add that field in the data model level. But
Correct, correct. So whatever the field, I'm not talking about buttons. Buttons you need not to add in the data model. Buttons is part of UI. Okay. But if it
okay,
is adding any specific field, so that you need to first add in the data model, then only you can go ahead and add the same field on UI.
in
Without
the change,
adding, without
I'm
adding
talking
the,
about change,
one,
change request.
yes, I'm talking about change request only, change request UI. So in change request UI, if you are trying to add a new custom field, particularly if it is a standard field, then why you need to add? Because it is already part of your data model. If it is a
Yeah, yeah.
custom field, which you need to add in your NWBC screen for create or change, then the first thing what you need to do, you need to add the same attribute in the data model level.
Okay, after that,
And while adding that, correct, and then you need to define accordingly
you
whether it
next
is
to
a
UI level
attribute.
in the change.
Correct. So basically here in data model, you need to then define whether it is a reuse mode or flex mode. Once the data model part complete, then you need to bring them on UI, which like we have a UI chapter. When we will go to the UI chapter, the same field which I have added today, you can see that that field I will bring there on UI in NWBC UI.
Yeah. Okay. One more thing. After the rejection, submit reject option is available in the change request, right? In that besides the rejection, can I modify that screen?
Definitely, you can modify whatever you want. In fact, you can add some
Uh,
button. You can include some
that
custom field. You can completely define a custom process itself.
okay.
Everything is possible, and everything what you are asking that will be demonstrated in this session. Okay, so don't worry.
Okay.
Just hold on. I'm going to talk about one by one. Okay,
Okay. Okay.
but your
Thank
questions
you.
are all correct, and your understanding also correct.
Yeah, hi Aditya, Pratos here. I have a
Yes,
couple of
yes.
questions. So it's about regarding the transformation. Can you go to the SMT mapping?
Okay,
So there is the transformation is there. That is one transformation is a standard transformation, and that in under standard transformation we have created added the custom field. So it's a good practice for me to create a new transformation or add this custom transformation. What is the good practice actually? Adding in a standard
uh,
transformation or create a new transformation and add custom fields?
correct. So you are absolutely right, and I'm glad that you asked this question. That yes, the best practice is you can create a new transportation and then you can add your custom field there. That's true. But at the same time, what happens that unnecessary we don't want to create the multiple transformations. That's what we want to keep everything within the same process, the same the existing transformation field mapping. So that's what we add up here. But categorically, to answer your question, yes, it is always a good practice. You add a new transformation field mapping like 002, and then you add up your custom field there. Okay,
Okay.
good
So I have
question.
another question. It's regarding data model generic structure. Now in the data model, we have created a custom entity. So for those custom entity, we need to create a data specific table structures. We have to generate data model specific structures for the customer's custom entity, which is added in a standard data model.
Custom attribute,
In
whatever we have added.
no. My question is in a standard data model, you have created the custom attribute, right? And you have added the generated the data specific models and the structures extension. That's fine. My question is the standard data model like we have created one entity, not in data model, not attribute, it's entity. And that entity we have the structure attributes, a couple of attributes. So for that entity, we need to generate the data specific structure.
Correct, correct. So that is my next activity, to
Okay,
add the
okay, so
custom entity types in the data model. Yeah. So that
okay,
is my next topic to talk about.
okay. And that another go. Can you go to the Excel sheet? Can you go to the your Excel sheet? It's just curious actually. Structures extension, it's you have given the MDZ underscore BS underscore mat underscore S table name, so we have to do. But I think it's from the MDZ 9.0. There is another structure that is CMD underscore BS underscore mat underscore S table name. That in those table also field has to be added. I guess. CMD underscore BS underscore MAT underscore S. I think from the MDZ 9.0, in those structures also that field has to be added, I guess. If I'm not wrong, maybe. Because I have gone through some documents, so in that document is written there. This is in this structures and otherwise CMD. You just open the structure also, CMD underscore BS underscore MAT underscore S MARA. You will find that structures also. I think from the MDZ 9.0. Actually, this is because in previous project I work as a what I work in a run project. So I got a dump actually, and we found that there was some structures were missing. Just CMD. CMD underscore BS underscore net. The same only, just from MDG, just change the CMD. From the MDG 9.0. I got this actually. I was working in one of my previous project in, so I got this dump actually. Then I figured out that this is that field was missing with this structures.
Aditya, it's client 900. Client 900.
Can you able to hear me?
Yes, Amit.
Hello.
Yeah, we are able to hear you.
It's client 999, Aditya. Client 999.
999.
Sorry, can you able to hear me? Hello.
Yes, we are able to hear you. It's client
Hello.
999.
Okay. Okay. So, in order to answer, yes, what you said, that is right. Now, let me answer your question that the previous client which we were using, that is 7.0. Now, as you mentioned that from MDG 9.0, yes, some changes are there from 9.0, like some additional structures has been added because it is compatible with S4 HANA. Because if you see before that, whatever the backend structure we had, that is mostly the Oracle or MSDB. And from 9.0, it is compatible with S4 HANA on premises and on cloud. That's what some additional structures has been given. So let me go to those structures. But in general, whatever the structures are there that we discussed, but of course, version specific, there is particularly from 9.0, there are some additional structures which needs to be maintained. So here, like this. Okay. So CMD, BS, MAT, MARA, this is the material basic data structure. Okay. For because so in 9.0, why it is necessary? Because in 9.0, there is an opportunity where down the line you can probably connect your system with S4 HANA on premise or on cloud. So in that case, some additional structures are needed for that. Okay. So here you can see the same way, like it is not there. So you need to add accordingly. If I show you structure information, it has only this. Okay, wait a minute. Okay, let me share my screen so we can see some information about the structure. Okay. CMD, BS, this is the standards here. Is a standard MDG material structure for SAP CA application. Okay. Below you can view the table structure field SAP T code for above reports, BW data sources, CMD, BS, MAC. You can use this in SE11 structure. So the main category for CA means like when your material, tell me one thing, okay, who has asked this question?
This is myself.
Hello?
Yeah, Aditya,
So in your, yeah. So in your requirement, whether the material had a direct connecting with the finance in your project?
I didn't.
The project.
I need to check actually. I am not aware that one.
Okay, so basically what happens that this structure is normally used for when you have some finance related information connect with the material. Okay, some transactional data connect with material. Okay. But yes, like I may not be very specific to that, but that is true. But in MDG 9.0, there are some additional structures which needs to be maintained. That's correct. But I need to talk about from the very general standpoint because these are all structure which normally you have to do. Okay, whatever listed here. But version wise, there might be some 2, 3, 4 structures you need to add on. So that we need to see accordingly. Okay. So any other question you have?
No, nothing from my side. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So anybody has any question? Otherwise, I will move on to the add custom entity types in the data model. Okay. So now I have created one requirement here for a different purpose. Obviously, try to make you understand something, particularly the reuse mode and flex mode. What was the requirement? The requirement was like we had the material basic information along with routing type, business unit, and let's say we have also ownership. Okay. And with this information, we want to create one sort of a details in the data model. And here, now the question is how the routing type will be, whether it will be because routing type will be the attribute or entity type. Similarly, we have business unit and ownership. Obviously, ownership purely depends on the business unit. Based on the different business unit, ownership will change. Same way, business unit purely depends on the routing type and material basic information. So then in such cases, how you will design your framework? Whether just simply you go ahead and add these 3 custom items as a custom attribute, or you have to do something different. So now, so here, let's go to MDG IMG. Go to the general settings, data model, edit data model. entity type. Now, in the previous example, we added the attribute. Now we are going to add the entity types. So let's go ahead and create the entity type. So let's say this is a routing type, and this routing type we are assigning as an entity type, but we are saying this is nothing but the type 3, which means this entity type will behave as an attribute also as an entity type. Okay. Then we are saying, let's say character 10, then description, routing type, save. Okay. Now, sorry, first I need to check whether, because I have already created the workbench request. Hang on, hang on, hang on. This is a different instance. Because the instance I wanted to continue this one. Because I have added this field here. So the same details I will maintain here. So all the examples will be one place for you. Okay. Fine. Now the next is, so this is done. Next is the business unit. Now create another entity type for business unit. Now this is something which is type 4. Okay. And data element I'm not giving because it will contain ownership within itself. Okay. Okay. No need to give any data element. Let's go to the description, business unit. Okay. So now, as I have created the business unit as a type 4, so I need to maintain the two type of relation. One is the leading relationship, another one is the qualifying relationship. Continue. First, before I maintain any relationship, let me add the attribute. So ownership, let's say character 5. Okay. So that means so far I have created two entity types. Now, when we added the attribute, it was not asking the relationship. But the moment you add the entity types, it will ask you the relationship. The relationship always lies for entity types. So now let me go to the relation now here. So what is the leading entity type for material? without any doubt, this is the one. Material is the leading entity type because inside this entity type, we have all the basic fields, basic standard fields. Without that field, the creation of material is not at all possible. Okay. Second thing is, so as I have created, so this is nothing but type 3. This is type 4. And let's say this material is type 1. Now, type 4 having the very static formula, that is type 4 always depends on type 1. So let's go by that formula first. Give the relationship name. So this is the leading relation. Why? Because the leading entity type is involved in this relation. Okay. So here the relation between material and business unit. This is the first one. Second one is the relation between type 4 and type 3 because business unit also depend on type routing type. So that's what type 4 and type 3. Now what kind of relation is, because the example which I have given earlier, if the routing type change, business unit change accordingly. So such kind of relation, we call it as a qualifying relationship. Okay. Based on a particular entity type, the other entity type value change. In such case, this kind of relationship considered as a qualifying relation. So here, routing type, business unit, give some name, and qualifying relation. Relation between okay. Now consider save. Okay. Now it is saying that we need to select the cardinality. So here we need to maintain the cardinality. Now cardinality says for one material there can be one or more than one business unit. So the cardinality could be 1:n. Similarly, the routing type, for one routing type there can be one or more than one business unit. Okay. So this is my relationship done. Once I complete this relationship, I will come back and first activate the data model. Because right now I can see the active version is different. So let me activate this. Anybody is using or it's me? Please do not use data model if in case you are using. Okay, so now I'm activating the data model. Once the data model will activate, the consequent step will be I will adjust the staging table. Okay, then I need to generate the structures. So which structures, like what we have done for previous case, for search, for UI, all those things. Okay, so this is done. Now let me go to USMD, adjust staging. Okay, so this is done. Now go back, then generate data model specific structure. MM structures. Now, which structure I can go with? Let's say business unit. Let's say business unit. Okay. Now, business unit, for an example, let's say this is a, because normally, as I was telling, that those structure will be using for reuse mode. So this will be reuse entity type, and this will be, let's say, flex entity type. So I can continue with this one. So this is the reuse mode. So the moment I will select, automatically the prefix and the structure name will be appeared based on the name. The package at this moment I'm just saving in a temporary package, but you have to save in your project package. Then same way, so this is for, let's say, UI field property. So same way, the other activities also I can add up. But mainly the two things which I have add up, which is very, very important. One is for UI and another one is for reuse mode. Okay. So then select it and generate selected structures. Okay. Now, now let's see. Here. Okay. So this is the material number, routing type, and also. Why this material number also coming? Because, sorry, uh, this is, oh sorry, why material number is coming? Because it is a leading entity type and the business unit is in a relation with, which is a leading relation with material. That's what you can see this material entity type, material details here. Then routing type, which is in a type 3 relation. And most important thing, this material and routing type, they are such kind of entity type, they define themselves as an entity type also as an attribute. That's what in routing type we have. If I quickly go back and show you in the data model, So here you can see we have a data element. When the data element defined, when the entity type represents itself as an entity type, also as an attribute. That is one thing. Another one is for material. Material is a leading entity type, but if you see the data element here matter, because material entity type, if you go inside, you cannot find any field as a material number. Rather, you can get the field like material type, unit of measure, material group, etc., etc. So, as a whole, this basic information define itself as a material number. Okay, so that's what this material entity type also as an attribute also represent as an attribute as well as an entity type. So that's what you can see these two attribute details along with the ownership for the business unit, because business unit is a prior entity type. It is not defined itself as an attribute. It is a prior entity type which hold the ownership name, this ownership field. Okay, so that is one thing. The another structure, if you see, okay, same way you can see the other structure as well for field property, UI field property. Fine. So this is the way we can generate the structure if I have any custom entity type in my framework. And for custom entity type, we need not to define any SMT mapping. SMT mapping will be only required when we have the custom attribute in place. When we have the custom entity type, that is not required at all. Clear? So this is all about the how to add the custom entity type in the data model. Any question? Okay. Then let me go to the next topic, which is genuine model.
Yeah, hi
Now,
Aditya. I have got one question actually.
okay.
So you have added the custom entity in the standard data model. So whatever the and which field
Okay,
and which
one second, one second. One correction I want to make. When you say custom entity, now let me tell you, entity means entity attribute, they are same. Like when you say entity, entity is nothing but attribute, nothing but field. Okay. So when you say that I'm adding custom entity, it is defined you are adding one custom attribute or you are adding one custom field. But that is not your question. So you have to say when I'm adding custom entity type or when I'm doing anything with standard entity type, because entity type is a group of entities. Okay, so that is one just suggestion for you or correction. Yes, please go ahead.
So you have created one entity type and you have added the field attributes also in that entity type. So in the so we have to add those attributes in the specific tables like Mara to store the data. It's now as of now it's in a data model only. It will be in a UI level, but the exact data
Okay,
will
now Now coming to the next example which I'm coming to, that the particularly the genuine model example, which will be answer your question. Like for an example, I have so far added in the data model level, but the same details, if I want to carry with the till my reuse mode level, then how I need to deal with. To quickly answer your question, routing type, as I'm using the flex mode, so it is not needed to go to the respective data model. Correct. Now coming on the rest of the things like ownership. Then the ownership, as business unit is a just entity type, it may not be required in the respective table. Then the only thing which will be needed, that is the ownership, which will be only required in the respective, let's say, Mara table. Then for ownership, it will go the same way what we discussed in the reuse mode process. Got my point? A routing type is a flex item. So the flex item means it is not going to the respective Mara table. Okay. Business unit is the pure entity type. Okay. And it is having the ownership as an attribute. So normally the ownership is something which we can expect which will go to the Mara table. So if the ownership is going to the Mara table as a reuse mode, then what we have discussed so far, the same reuse mode configuration will continue here. Okay, this is. But now categorically to answer your question, like for an example, if I want a custom entity type, and that entity type I want to be part of like reuse mode field. I just given the example here as a flex mode. But if it is a reuse mode field, then what I need to do? Okay. Now this example I will combine in a different way. Okay. Let me continue with genuine model. Then I will come back. Okay. Any other question?
No, Aditya. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Right. Okay. Now coming to the genuine model. So so far we were talking about the material master. Okay. Now just think if it is the same sort of a situation in business partner where we are adding some custom entity type in the business partner. Entity type, okay? Obviously attribute will be there, but particularly the entity type, then what is going to happen? And let's say just start with the flex mode, then I will come to the reuse mode part. Okay. So let's say I have one scenario where I have one field called in respect to the business partner. I have a field called, let's say, material. Material means you can say that in business partner how you get the material. Here material is just one custom field. Let's say, okay. So material is nothing but a custom field here. And let's say purchase information. These two fields I have. Now, how I will develop along with my business partner data. Let's go to the entity type. Now, this example I have already created before this session, just to make it little quick because already couple of demonstration we had in live. So here I will show you what I have created here. I think the system got refreshed or something. Coordinator, is the system refreshed recently? Means before we start the session or something? Because I created one demonstration, I cannot
Yes,
see
yes,
that.
Aditya. There are some issue with NWBC, so I refreshed it.
Okay, okay, no problem. Let me create. So let's say Z info record. This is the example I will take. So this is one type 4. Let's say character 10. Now active area. So here I will define the active area. That means this data I want to go to the respective reuse mode. So if I go to F1, you can see what is active area. So specifies the reuse active area for active data. This is the system is establishing the communication between the master data governance and the tables. You can reuse the active data using the above class and above interface. And this is one interface for PP access. Again, this PP persistent phase. So if you enter the reuse active area, then the system stores the active data solely in this reuse active area. So active data from hierarchies is always stored in the MDG specific active area. So that is one of the answer to your question, what you asked for. So if I have one custom entity type, and if that custom entity type is my reuse mode, then what I need to do, how I will bring them into the respective active area table. For that, I need to define the active area like MDG. MDG always we use when we define for custom situations or custom scenarios. So what is going to happen? Respect to this entry, whatever you are going to submit, that is going through the respective active uh, through the active area. Okay, so that was answer to your previous question, what you asked for. Then obviously we need to enhance the access class, and then access class will help to reach the data to the respective database table. Okay, so this is the active area. Okay, now it says model BP entity type company. No, it's not related to our activity. It is just saying source field for text must not be entered. It is something standard which just needs to be maintained as it says. Then it says that the Z info record does not entry for data element is okay. I will not use any data element here. Okay. And as usual, I need to make the leading and qualifying relation because it is a because it is a type 4 entity type, which I have maintained. Then go to the attribute. And here, Z purchase block. Data element, let's say this is the standard data element for this. If you want to see what is this data element, that also we can check quickly. So this is for the data element for centrally imposed purchasing block. And then whether it is a key field means like whether it is a primary key, no. Whether it is a required entry. First of all, to make certain field mandatory or required entry or invisible or read only or grayed out, such kind of activities, we would perform through the UI feeder class rather than just doing here. Why? Remember, if you put a tick mark over here as a required entry, this entry will be required for all kind of change request type. But let's say if you have a requirement specific to any particular change request type, then how you will manage it? That's what we will always go through the feeder class, UI feeder class extension in order to manage such kind of UI field property activities. Okay. Anyway, that I will come when the UI discussion will be there. Then similarly for search help as well. Search help also we can create through UI feeder class enhancements. Then this is okay. So this is the one entity type. Another entity type is Z map now type 3. Now go to relationship. Here, so this is the material number, which is type 3, having the relationship with type 4. This is the qualifying relation, because based on material number, there can be one or more than one info records. So 1 is to n. Same way, now here the leading entity for BP is BP header. Okay, and the entity type for this Z info record, which is type 4. So the simple formula says type 4 depends on type 1. And this is something leading entity type, sorry, leading relationship. Say, Okay. Now the error which is appearing, that is not related to anything which we did, but this is some standard entity type which needs to be corrected. So this description not needed, you say. Okay. So I can see the active version is different here. Now activate this. Okay. Now let me adjust the staging table. So here the model is BP. Okay. So this is done. Now, so once we add this activity in the BP, now BP does not work like material work. What happens that when you add certain entity type, particularly the custom entity type or custom attribute in the process, particularly the custom entity type, okay, then we have to do certain activity in BP. And what is that certain activity? That is, we need to exclusively maintain the Genil model. So Genil model is a middle layer between the data model and UI. And why it is necessary? Because particularly for material or finance, it is not needed. Because the moment you activate the data model, the respective activities will be taken care automatically in the middle layer level. But not for business partner case. Because in business partner case, we have something called MUPA concept, which is the combination of business partner along with the ERP customer and ERP vendor which associate with. Okay, so that's the reason whenever or whatever the data we will be added or particularly custom entity type, we need to do the additional genuine model activity. Okay, so then how to do that? So once you activate this data model, the next activity will be to go to, before that, go to the genuine data model specific structure. Sorry, generate data model specific structure. Sorry. And here, uh, entity type, Z, it is not there. Fine. Okay, because this is type 4, so we use say, here field properties, which no need to say, because for me, generate the structure is important. Saving is not important. Okay. Now if I go to 11, okay. So here we have business partner ID or header details, business partner ID, and then material number, and then the purchase block. Okay. So this is for the PP mapping. Then next is, once the generate structure is done, then go to genuine model editor for genuine model. You can use either any one of the transactions. One is genuine model browser or genuine model editor. Both will drive you the same place. So the enhancement. So let's create one enhancement with the same name I'm just creating. Okay. Now the super enhancement name is the Bupa customer supplier. This is the standard name for super enhancement. Okay. Continue. Okay, save it in local object. So enhancement Z info record created successfully. Okay, now we have inside this particular genuine model, the first thing what we need to do exactly the same thing what we have done in the data model. What we have done in the data model? Basically, in the data model, we created the entity type and its relationship. Same way, here we will create the dependent object and its relationship. Same thing, slightly name different. So right click, create dependent object. So here, now root object will be bp underscore root. Attribute structure will be, this is the structure which we have created, pp structure, and key structure will be, so this structure I'm going to create it now. Create it. So here one includes the component type, this one, another one is material. Okay, so this is the key structure. Now if you see what I have added basically the business partner ID and the material number with this key structure. And then we have this PP and the BP root object. Save it. Fine. Then go to the root object and you have relations. Create relations. So now let's say this is the relation which I'm creating. So by default it will come the source object, the relationship which is aggregations, and the cardinality is 0:n. Assigned object not required anything. Say, so here in the assigned object, we have to give the dependent object name. Save it. So that means in the relationship, this is a relationship. So in this relationship, my dependent objects are there, which is nothing but material and business partner ID. So now again go to the JDB model just to have a view. Okay, so here we have the dependent object z_info record. Under this, we have the key structure, which is BPID and MATNA, and we have this PP structure where we have BP header, MATNA, and purchase block. This is under the z_info record. Then coming to the relationships here, sorry, root object, relations. This is the one, BP to info record. In this relation, we have, because added the dependent object, so whatever the dependent object contained, the same details has been maintained here, which is in a relationship. Okay, so this is the Genil model which we have. Now, this so go to MDG IMG. So once you complete the Genil model, go back, go to the data model, VP, and here uh, z_info record. This one, this entity type, as I was telling, that we can define some relative structures for this. So we can maintain the structure respect to this here, field properties. Okay. So this structure we can maintain. This is the relative structure, which is for field UI field properties associated with this z_info record. Okay. Now we can activate the data model. So this is the additional step, which is the Genil model step, which we have to do. One more thing we need to do in the Genil model. Let me activate the data model. So just quick recap, what we have done. So basically in BP data model, we have added two entity types. One is material number as a custom field. It has no relation with our NM data model. So don't think in that way, just a custom field. Secondly, the purchase block, purchase information record. Under that, we have something called purchase block as an attribute. So two entity types and one attribute. And then this material entity type has been defined as a type 3, and another one, which is purchase info record, defined as a type 4. Then we made a relationship, the relationship between the type 1 and type 4, then type 3 and type 4. Then we had a as usual generate data model specific structure. Then we go to the Genil model in order to define the Genil details. Then next, go to SN34, and this is the Genil view cluster. Display, and this is Bupa concept. As I was telling, the Bupa is the main component, and this one is the BP root, which also we added in the dependent object. Now go to the Genial component. Now add our component here. Bupa, external object name. That means this is the dependent object name which we created in the Genial model. Z info record and the entity type. However, same name I have maintained. It is better to maintain different name, but here as I have maintained the same name, but the uppercase and lowercase. This is for dependent object which created under the Jalil model, and this is the entity type which created in the data model. So now we add here, which is nothing but the Jalil model assignments. So now I may have why we are doing this activity. The reason we are doing this activity is that I may have the different entity type or different object name in the different period of time. So I can add multiple components here, multiple object name, multiple entity types here. Okay. So this is related to the genuine model.
Oh, it is just one general question. So its object name is a case sensitive or what? Because it's taking a small character as well. External object name is
No,
the
no,
case
I
sensitive.
have just taken no. I have just taken the same name. That's what just to for easy identification I have used one is the lowercase and one is for uppercase. Nothing like a
Okay.
case.
Okay.
Okay. So this is related to the Jalil model. Then we will have obviously the process is not stop here. Then the UI, then so on. But at this moment, as we are discussing on data model, so I just want to restrict myself within the data model itself. Okay. Then the same entity, same example I will carry on in UI level as well. So the same details I will continue on UI and will create a set of new UI BBs and the respective fields for that. Okay. So any question on Genil model? This is one very simple example which I have shown. So similar way, particularly for BP, Genil model is not necessary or not required for MM or finance or any other object. It is only necessary for business partner. Okay. And particularly when you are dealing with the custom entity type, not custom attribute. Custom attribute will continue as same process what the reuse mode and flex mode will have. However, today I'm not going to do this discussion, but this customer vendor integration in the next session, which I will take it in this particular example, what I will do, I will create one custom attribute in BP and I will show you how the same information is going to three different database tables. One is BUT000, which is business partner table. One is LFA1 and one is uh, both the BUT000 and the LFA1. Okay, so this is another set of discussion. So today we basically cover these three things. Okay. Now in terms of document, already this data model chapter wise, some documents already has been provided in the respective link. Go to that link, go to the data models related chapter, and please uh, go through all the documents which is related to material, finance, and finance same way it will continue. Like reuse mode. Mainly for finance, we use flex mode. We don't use reuse mode. The reason I have already told, but next week I will, when I will touch upon the finance part, I will also talk about the reason. But mainly, why? Because in finance, because we deal with the transactional data, okay, along with master data, of course. So those records does not those fields particularly does not change frequently. The transactional fields. That's what we use the flex mode. Okay. Okay. So apart from that, let me. Uh, I just unshare my screen. One second. I want to show you something. Hmm. Let me share my screen. This link I'm sharing here. So this is one link which you can always follow. This is related to different documentations, which is having configuration enhancement details. So if I start with central governance framework, where you have some, this is, I'm just looking for the one which we covered today. Yeah, this is the one I can see related to the custom one. Wait. Mm, Reference custom object. So in the last session, as the custom object we created related to the airline process, you can refer this. This is also related to more or less same activity. Yeah. Then go to the domain specific. Let's say material. See, extend MDG with new entity type, ERP table, reuse mode. So this is one question which we had. One of so what every cases you can get it here. Whatever the case you can imagine in your real-time project. Okay. So if I say new entity type plant data for material. Okay. So this is material entity type. We use mode, flex mode, just talked about. This is the access class, standard access class for material. So this is the implementation sequence. First, create new entity types, generate data model. SMT mapping is also necessary. Let's see. Okay, well, what exactly they are saying. Okay, they are sending the data into the MARC table. and this is the entity type, which is having, these are all attributes. So let's see, create new entity types, generate data specific structure, SNP mapping, mapping primary, and then means uh, staging to PP, and then PP to active, and then adjust staging, and then UI. Anyway, UI we are not bothered about. And this is the table, and here material is one entity type, and YMARC1 is another one, okay, and which having, these are all attributes. And this is another entity type. This is type 4, this is type 3, this is also another type 3, this is also another type 3. Okay, so here we go. YMARC1, which is changeable via type 4, which is having, these are all different attributes. Okay, this is another entity type, which is nothing but type 3. This is another one, which is also type 3. Another one, type 3, like type 3, 2, 3 items it has. Anyway, that is depends on requirement. Then material with YMARC1, which is a leading one because material is part of it. Then other one is qualifying. Mostly I'm referencing some other. Okay. Just think the scenario YMARC1 and uh, another type 3, which is probably this one, YT001W. Okay. Just entity type you can discard. It's not required. Okay, then once you define all are one is to end relationship. Once this is done, then generate data model specific structure respect to YMARC1. MARC1. Whatever you need it, you maintain it. Then generate structure. So this is the PP structure where you can see all the custom fields which you have added. Then yes, SMT mapping is required. I said it was not required because some other perspective, but yes, it is required when it is going to the specific table. Yeah, I just correct myself here. So create and edit mapping, but the procedure is the same, 2PP and 2STA. Same way it will continue. Okay. So then go to 2PP, 2STA, add the field, then go to details. See, another thing which was asking whether we can create a new transformation field mapping. So even the what SAP also did, basically maintain the same within the existing one. So either we can go with the existing one or we can create our own transformation mapping. So both are okay. Then to STA. Then to STA, same way it will continue. The specific structures also you need to keep in mind. See, this is the same way as I was telling. MDGBS mat S table name. So here the table name is MARC. So it is MDGBS mat S table name is MARC. So the same way it will continue. Then once it's done, then yeah, mapping also you can maintain whatever you have mapped. Then activate it, adjust the staging area, and then UI. So up to this page 35, whatever it is showing, that is related to this data model activity. Similarly, if we go back, let's see what are the other activities we have. Hmm. New attribute custom Z field, this is also just we talked about. Then reuse mode Z tables. If you want to go for a Z table, custom table, this is also. Then new entity type flex mode. Okay, flex mode. What you have to do? Just you say yeah, flex mode. Then extend the user interface is something which is part of UI. Anyway, so these are all items. Okay. Then similarly, you can go for customer, supplier, and business partner.
Yeah, Aditya.
Okay.
Aditya, can you hear me?
Okay. Yes,
Is there any way you can help with the link for the EAM? I like this link here.
you want me to send this link in the chat?
I mean, is there on the no? I'm talking about the EAM part of it, of the EAM.
EM part. Okay. I have already shared the document. You didn't
No,
receive that?
no, not yet. Do you have the
No,
link?
uh, wait a minute. For EAM,
Yes.
I doubt. I don't think so. Because you can see the domains are defined here. Mainly this is for customer, supplier, business partner, material, and finance. But listen, the document which I shared, you immediately connect with coordinator if you haven't received the document. But this document is a very detailed document.
Okay.
All the entity types, all the attributes, relationship, everything has been given. So you don't need any additional link for that.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll, I'll
Please
check
go
it.
through it. Yeah, yeah. Please check with coordinator. He will share with you. Yeah.
I'll
Okay.
check. All right.
So
Thank you.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. So anybody has any question? Otherwise, I will close today. So basically, next week we will talk about the customer vendor integration related to BP. Then I will touch upon finance. So now, if I quickly see our agenda, so in this particular chapter, we have developed the custom model, then the enhancement for MMBP finance, where basically the custom field for MMBP, custom entity type, CVI is we have to wait next week, and then general model. Any question, anything?
Aditya, are you gonna be sending that the spreadsheets? You gonna be sharing that?
I will, yes, yes, I always send this Excel sheet as well as this PPT. Both I will share.
Can you put this link on maybe on the chat?
Okay, try in here.
Yes.
You mean
Yes.
in PPT? Okay, okay. 1 second.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Okay. And then